right now, we welcome to the show Ryan McGee from ESPN, writing at ESPN.com, and part of Marty and McGee. Also has the new book to check out, Welcome to the Circus of Baseball. Ryan, we appreciate the time as always. You were back in Knoxville just a few days ago, a UT grad speaking at UT graduation. Where does that rank among career accomplishments?
I did not have that on the Ryan McGee Life bingo card. That was the best part. I actually opened my speech by telling everybody. My college roommates from Tennessee right now are blowing up my phone, going, "Really? Are we really doing this? Is this really happening?" So it was one of the great honors of all time. And listen, it's always great to be back on campus. It's always great to be back in Thompson-Boling. But it was especially great, standing up there and, imparting some wisdom. And I have a teenage daughter, right? So I know the deal. And that generation, they're all like, "What's this old man know?" But as soon as I told them that, I knew they were nervous because they might not get their diploma because they hadn't paid their parking tickets, suddenly they realized I could relate because I had the same thing happen to me 30 years ago.
Was it a little bit easier coming back and speaking with Tennessee athletics being in a whole lot better position? Imagine if you would have gotten that phone call, 3-4 years ago, how maybe awkward that would have been.
A little awkward. Yeah, a little awkward to bring a sports writer back who used to work in the athletic department. Yeah, when all that. Well, I did get in a pretty good little. I did get a Jeremy Pruitt jab, and the chancellor Plowman was actually there, and I think there was a little nervousness because some of the folks knew I had a Jeremy Pruitt shot built into the speech, but afterwards I don't think she minded. I watched the video; she was laughing, so that's good.
Ryan McGee is with us from ESPN. Speaking this past week at UT, so back on campus, what do you see right now from both Tennessee football with where the program is a couple years in with Josh Heupel, and then if you expand out and look at where Tennessee athletics is right now with the leadership change that's taken place the last couple of years?
Well, it's just a positive energy. I think that the difference is that, and I've talked to a lot of, you guys have these conversations all the time, but, all the guys that were back, for the Alabama game on the football side back in October and talking to Al Wilson and talking to some of the guys I went to school with. And, a few years ago, you were kind of always waiting on something to go wrong. And, because you just, honestly, you'd earn that feeling because it had just been, a decade of, well, what's going to happen now? And the difference now is you don't expect things to go wrong. You expect them to go right. You expect to win the games and you expect to have the success and you expect to have pride in the brand. And to me, that's the biggest difference is just that kind of momentum. And listen, Nick Saban, y'all probably saw this. He just got back from a trip to Europe. And what he said was he was completely blown away that everywhere he went, Greece, Italy, wherever, he was, people were yelling RTR at him. And I won't actually say the other words, but you know what I mean?
Thank you.
And but it's there's a pride that comes with success. And even the people who aren't big sports fans, who aren't, not big athletic department people, they have to admit that. And admissions numbers at Tennessee are way up. And applications are way up, and the reason is because, quite frankly, it's because the sports teams are doing really well. So it's just that's the difference. The difference is that it's an expectation of an excitement of, hey, what's going to happen next, as opposed to, oh man, hell, what's going to happen next?
What are some of your contemporaries saying when talking about Tennessee, the national media? I know you have your viewpoint. You're alum, but what are some of the other people in the national media saying about Tennessee and kind of what's been going on the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, listen, I was at the Sports Emmys last night in New York, and everyone knows that I'm a Tennessee guy, and obviously they know I co-host a show on the SEC network, and so people always want to talk about it, and that's the conversation has changed the same way I was just talking about, which is when people are asking me about, like I saw Reese Davis last night, and when Reese walks up and wants to talk to me about Tennessee athletics, it's not oh man, let's talk about Tennessee athletics. It's hey, let's talk about Tennessee athletics. So that's the difference. The difference is people can sense the momentum, and it's not just about football. I mean, obviously football is the headliner, football is the spotlight and all that. But the reality is that the other sports on campus, particularly when it comes to basketball, it's on the stage, and it's even with Tennessee baseball. I heard you guys talking about all the baseball scenarios that could play out for these guys depending on what happens in Hoover. And even with that, even last year when they were number one, everybody was kind of like, well, what's going to happen? And something happened, and I feel like this year kind of fighting from behind, it kind of fits this team better. And so I don't know. To answer your question, when my colleagues in the press box or at events like last night come up and talk to me about Tennessee, it's a very, very positive conversation as opposed to a, hey man, what do you think is happening down there?
Ryan McGee, ESPN.com, Marty and McGee on the SEC Network. What do you think about Tony Vitello's team now heading into the postseason, SEC tournament this week, and then NCAA's after that?
My feeling is that you can peak too early. I think LSU is experiencing this right now, and it's you can win all the games you want. I say this about college basketball all the time. It was funny with college basketball. We're always in the middle of February. We're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with Duke? Or hey, what's wrong with so and so? And then by the time you get to March, guess what? They're ready to go. And so that's how I feel about baseball. So I never hit the panic button like I think some people did with Tennessee baseball in the middle of the year. Because again, I think first of all, we know they had to replace a lot, talent-wise. But I think it fits the personality of this team, and I certainly think it fits the personality of the coach to have to be the underdog, right? To come from to have to fight from behind. I think there's just certain teams, rosters, coaches that are built for chasing as opposed to being chased. And so, yeah, I think a little bit of hurdles to have to jump in the middle of the season, I think it's going to serve this team well. So it feels like they're making that turn, and it'll start now. And so it's I think these guys play better with a chip on their shoulder, and it's a lot easier to have chips on your shoulder when people are telling you what's going to go wrong as opposed to patting you on the back and saying, hey, you're number one.
Ryan McGee, ESPN, is with us. Ryan, you're covering everything in the college sports world. You're covering NASCAR, what's going on there. And then you found time to write a book about the circus of the sport of baseball and minor league baseball. Tell us about the book, favorite story maybe that you would share with people as you put it together.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it up. Yeah, it came about a month ago when the minor league baseball season started. And, I'm such a minor league junkie that my first real date with my future wife, who's sitting right downstairs, she's a Farragut 80 Pi UT singer, sang at Dollywood. I couldn't believe she agreed to go out with me. So what did I do, being the romantic I was? I took her to Calhoun's and ate ribs, and then I took her to see, at the time, there were the Knoxville Blue Jays over at the old ballpark over on the edge of the old city. And so I just love minor league baseball. And so this book is, yes, it's about a particular summer, and it's about me, and it's about, just funny stories and the characters I met that summer. But it's really just a love letter to minor league baseball. I mean, I write a whole thing in there about how pulling the tarp almost killed me twice. Like, the tarp closed over me. Like, so when you're pulling the tarp, there's only like 8 of you pulling it, and this thing is getting heavier and heavier because it's raining and the water's starting to collect on top of the tarp. And it's this massive plastic sheet, right? You got to pull over the whole ballpark. And I fell down right by the pitcher's mound. Well, the tarp just kept going. And I thought this thing is going to get so far I can't get out from underneath it, and then the tarp's going to drop, and they're going to get my body out of here tomorrow morning, because I thought that thing was – so I'm crawling on my hands and knees to get out of there. And another time the wind got under the tarp, and I was hanging on to it, and it took off it's like when you take a bed sheet and like whip it to put it on the bed. Yeah. The air got underneath that thing, and I flew up in the air. And I thought, I'm going to die, because this thing is going to throw me from 20 feet up in the air. And so I wrote that in the book, and what did the Smokies do? But they dug out a video that's the funniest thing I've ever seen on YouTube. And they had a thing, they called it tarp-nami, like a tsunami, about 10 years ago out in Sevier County. And the wind got underneath that tarp. And there is a video on YouTube for the Smokies tarp-nami of this guy running for his life, and that tarp is chasing him. And it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So I just love minor league baseball. I think it's the last place where you can just go watch a ball game and not really have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about free agency. You don't have to worry about who's going to win the game. You can just get a hot dog and a beer and chill, get your picture taken with a goofy mascot, and that's really what the book's about.
Ryan, you mentioned your time working in the athletic department in your earlier part of your career. Link Hudson just retired over there from UFL Films. What do you remember about your time working with Link?
He was my best friend in college. I mean, Link and I used to literally because we started together in the athletic department. We were both sophomores, and we started, shooting practice. The gear, the video equipment they had in the athletic department was so far beyond anything you would find. If you go to work for ABC News, you wouldn't have had this kind of equipment. And so we took part-time jobs in the athletic department and went to practice every day shooting practice. I was on the tower with Coach Majors, and Link was on the roof of the building, which was a brand new building then, the indoor. And, we would literally sit down and schedule our classes together so that we would have all of our classes together. And then he and I would go work in the athletic department in the afternoon and go to practice. And then in the evenings, he and I used to coach youth basketball, like out in Farragut, during the wintertime. And so he grew up with my wife. He's one of my dearest friends. And I, when someone that you grew up with retires, it starts to make you feel very old. but I'm very happy for Link. He is one of the all-time great Americans.
Yeah, and maybe there's some bias here, but Ryan, isn't that part of what separates Tennessee from other places? Like, there are a lot of examples of that, of the connections that were made. We talked about Gus Manning when he passed away not too long ago, a Tennessee legend. But there's a long list of those types of people that have made a difference, some that are very well known, some that their names aren't quite as known by the average person. But those connections have made what Tennessee has been over the last however many years you count up.
And those are the people that make the athletic department tick, right? We all know about the coaches, and we all know about the superstar players, and we all know about even the athletic directors. But the reality is, Link Hudson took that job with me when we were sophomores, and he never left. And the guy that we both worked for, Barry Rice took a job as a student several years before us and never left. And so there's so many of those people in that athletic department, and really in every department in the college, at the university. You go over to the English department, you go to the business school. There are people who have been dedicated their lives to the university, and they're the ones. And it really, man, y'all know it becomes part of your identity. Last night, I'm at the Sports Emmys, and it's time to go sit down in the theater for the awards. And who did I sit with? I sat with Andrea Carter and Gene Wojciechowski, and the three of us were just GBO, VFL all night long. So it's just, it is who you are, and you're in the family, and people like Link Hudson, they're the ones that hold it together, and make things happen, even while the rest of us are running all over the place.
Ryan McGee, you see him on Marty McGee with the SEC Network and ESPN, and recommend you check out his new book, Welcome to the Circus of Baseball, a story of the perfect summer at the perfect ballpark at the perfect time. It's by Ryan McGee. Ryan, thanks so much for taking time to join us today. Really enjoyed it. Really appreciate your time.
All right, boys. Y'all call me anytime. Thanks.